And this is something that every homeowner should also know. Yes, there are companies that say they deal with this.
Yeah.
To be quite honest, in terms of competitors, I have only two direct competitors. The rest are either attic companies
Right.
or pest control companies.
Right.
And so an attic company, unless in some sort of way they find a way to, get a pest control license,
Right.
legally they can't even identify a rodent dropping.
Right.
And on the other side of it, a pest control company legally isn't allowed to remove more than, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 100 square feet of insulation. So we're the best of both worlds. Two
Right.
licenses,
Right.
and that's why we're capable of doing it all. So, I mean, when these companies pop up, it's the easiest thing for us. It's explaining them, hey, you're talking about an attic company.
Right.
It's comparing apples to oranges these days.
So let me ask you this. Here's a good question for you. Now, this is just me asking. I used to build houses, so I'm very familiar with all aspects of homes and stuff like that. So one of the biggest things on an older home is lack of attic ventilation. Now, you doing what you do, you're basically helping customers, first of all, get rid of a rodent issue, decontaminate it, and you're actually reinstalling insulation. Of course, I'm hoping to today's standards.
Or 38.
Yeah. And then do you actually even look at the ventilation on the roof, like for the soffit vents? Because the reason for that is, let me explain. The reason for that is soffit vents are great to have. You always want to have a lower vent and you want an upper vent.
Correct.
Cool air comes in from the bottom, pushes the hot air out. That's the ultimate way it works.
Right.
Most homes do not have that. Now, if you're installing blown insulation and there's soffit vents, you have to address that accordingly with baffles.
Absolutely.
Now, are they using those styrofoam baffles, or what are they using nowadays?
So you have styrofoam,
Right.
and you also have aluminum, which is more expensive.
Yeah.
Again, typically, I don't want to get to the route of installing blown-in insulation.
Well, I'm right there with you, man. I don't like it
Because, again, there's no realistically, other than the fact that it's a lot cheap. It's not a lot cheaper. It's a little cheaper than Batt's.
It's faster to put it in.
Exactly. For me as a contractor, less labor, and cheaper on cost of material.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cheaper for the homeowner. But the question is, are you getting value for your money? And that's why I don't like to install it, because there's no hard value. Blown in insulation. Again, going back to my company, if you have a rat problem again, if your cable guy came in and cut a little hole and he left it open, just like we said earlier, now you have rat problem again. Who are you gonna call?
Ghostbusters.
Right.
Ratbusters.
Yeah, there you go, rat busters. And so with that being said, I mean, for me, if that happens, I back up my warranty.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna leave you stranded. You just spent $4,000 to $8,000. Not gonna leave you stranded. So with that being said, blown-in insulation for me doesn't make sense, because now I have to not only locate the rodents, I have to locate where they urinated, where they dropped. With that being said, I mean, by the time that's done, I'm pulling out all this insulation.
Yeah, people don't understand. It's like an ocean of insulation in your attic. You can't even see the ceiling joists, which means you can't even get in through your attic. You're going to take a chance of falling through the ceiling.
You don't know anything.
You can't see anything. When I inspect a house that just had blown insulation put in, I'm like, oh, what are they possibly hiding under here?
Yeah.
2 other layers of insulation, possibly vermiculite insulation. Who knows what's under there?
Yeah,
I can't tell. I could just maybe dig in with a handful and try to see what's in there, but that's about it. I've seen a lot of stuff hidden under that.
So that's why we don't believe in it. Again, I believe in giving you value. I believe in giving you good quality. But yes, if I do have to put in blown insulation, we do put in those barriers, because the attic does need to breathe.
Yeah.
And that's how it keeps it cool. But And well, other things as well. I mean, it gets rid of mildew and stuff like that. But I don't know. I don't ever really recommend it. I don't like it.
Yeah, so I want to just touch back on that, on what a baffle is for anyone that doesn't know what it is. They're probably baffled right now because they don't know what a baffle is. A baffle is a piece of material that's got, it attaches to the sheething on each end with a little lip, and then it comes down like this to create a space between the sheathing and the end of the product. And if you have blown insulation and you have soffit vents, they're just going to block the vents. So this baffle goes into place to allow that air to come in the soffit vent, travel through the baffle, or it's not getting blocked by the insulation. It allows air to flow.
Right.
That's what it is. I've seen it made out of cardboard. I've seen it made out of...
Cardboard is also common.
Yeah, like styrofoam. I used to install it. So a lot of people are just not aware of it, and you just never see it.
Yeah, I mean, again, blown in insulation, it's the unknown. It's the unknown. I mean, we've inspected houses that were just bought, and they knew they had rat problem, and they just took in blown in insulation, put a sheet of it over the old insulation, over the old infested, all the poop and stuff, and the homeowner's like, oh, we hear things at night, but people have been in our attic, and they're like, there's nothing there. No wonder there's nothing there, because it's all nice and new and fluffy. It needs
to be vacuumed out and...
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I mean, you have recessed lights without caps, and there's insulation. I mean, it's a fire hazard. Right. I don't know. I mean,
I really appreciate what you guys do, because I honestly am a big believer that anybody buying a home, an older home, should do that before they move in.
Yeah.
Just clean that thing out just like you'd clean out your closets. Just get up there and clean everything out and start fresh and move in. And you know what? No worries.
I tell you this, I have a nice group of buddies, and a lot of them are in the development industry, or even flipping. A lot of them flip homes.
I'm sure I inspected a few.
Probably. And to be quite honest, when you're flipping a home, you don't care. You're gonna make it all nice and beautiful, but just so that their ass is saved, they look into a lot of good things. They look into the structure of the house, the bones. They look into electrical, plumbing. So they're up in this attic. They're looking at all this stuff, so that in the end of the day, when they're selling the house, they know that at least the electrical is fine, the bones are fine, and things are good in this house.
I don't know. I'm going to have to disagree with you on that one.
Really? I don't know. My buddies,
I inspect these all the time, man, and most of flippers do. Those are the exact things they neglect.
Really?
They typically neglect the 5 major systems, which is roofing, which I show up and there's 3 layers of shingles up there. And even the top layer looks like hell.
So that's terrible. That's already
that's bad. Yeah. But people do it all the time. I go up on you walk in the front door, everything's shiny. You got to put your sunglasses on. It's so shiny in there because everything is new. And then you go up on the roof, and then I find a 20-year-old AC unit. You know what I mean? So those are the expensive items.
Yeah.
And I just had my last podcast guest was actually a customer. So I interviewed him before I inspected his house the next day. And we talked about this exact thing. What I want to make sure is that you have the major systems upgraded. Don't worry about the cosmetics.
Yeah, exactly.
But sure enough, you get an old unit out here, you get a new unit in here, you get old ducting up in the attic, you get rats everywhere. That's what it is.
I guess I know a few good guys. They're not cutting these corners.
Yeah, so you never know. Your guys could be doing it the right way. I don't know. Yeah. It's just usually it's the same problems.
Yeah,
cheap type M copper, cheap copper, or they only replace sections of copper and leave the galvanized in there. They get cross connections, the wrong hangers. They're just causing electrolysis all over the plumbing system. Those are the typical things I find.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, we're probably 2 good guys, but I think it's really important, for all even new homeowners that they should know. Cosmetics, it'll come.
Yeah.
But the main things in your house, these bones, the piping, the electrical,
heating and cooling,
things that you don't see on a daily basis are the most important things. Yeah. Not when you come into a house and you see this beautiful kitchen. Yeah, it's important. You're gonna like it. But if you have a bursted pipe,
visually satisfying.
Yeah. Totally. But again, if you have this bursted pipe eventually or this old lines, you're not going to be happy.
No, not at all.
For a long time.
Another thing, too, we didn't mention, and that is another way your rodents get into your building is vegetation. Mm-hmm. Those of you who just love to plant your house, like literally have vines on your walls and trees touching your roofs. Yep. That may look pretty to you, but you are just inviting a big problem. So good luck with that. And that's typically the houses I find with the biggest problems.
You know what I've bumped into a few times? There are people that believe in compost.
Yep.
And may God bless them, seriously, because what's the point of it? Really, I mean, what's the point of it? Okay, so it's not directly on your house. It's sitting in the corner of your backyard.
Right.
But what's the point? I don't understand what is the really. Maybe you know what is the point.
I don't know. I look at it the same way.
Compost. To me, it's just like, again, I'm the rat guy. I'm coming to your house as Superman, but I'm the rat guy, and you have this whole compost thing that's sitting there, and you're expecting for me to tell you why you have a rat problem when
you're inviting them.
You know, you're just here. Take some crackers, take some peanut butter.
Sure. You're keeping the whole ecosystem alive.
I don't know. To me, it's like it's surprising.
All right, so I remember on our phone call, you broke down the difference between vermin, rodents, and all that. Can you kind of touch on that? Because that is a little confusing.
It's very confusing.
So confuse us.
Okay, let's confuse you guys a bit. To keep it nice and simple. Rodents are mammals, okay, that do not have canine teeth. But their teeth constantly grow, so they're always trying to chew on something to sharpen the teeth.
Huh.
Okay, so that's rodents. I'm gonna keep this as plain as simple as it gets, because then it just gets really confusing. I mean, rats, mice, and then you got raccoons, and then vermins, which rats and mice are part of that group, are any kind of pest that destroy crop.
Okay.
So this is going to keep it just plain and simple. And part of that are like fleas, ticks. You got rats and mice. I mean, there's a whole category. I think, if I'm not mistaken, like coyotes. And then you also have raccoons, which is like its own thing. I think we discussed how we got into raccoons.
Yeah.
And so, like I said earlier, I'm in the restoration. I'm from the restoration world. So to me, it's like water damages, all that stuff, all the goods, which fall under your insurance, which we all love, right?
Sure. When they pay.
Right. Yeah. And so one day my brother-in-law and I are sitting and we're like, shouldn't this rat infestation situation be covered by your homeowner's insurance? And, whatever. We started doing these researches and all, looking up online, and I ended up speaking to my insurance agent. I'm like, listen, I need you to look into this and find out for me if there's a way for homeowners to get rats out of their attic through the insurance. A few days go on, he calls me back. He's like, there's absolutely no way. Not rats, at least. I'm like, okay, so you just said at least. So what's the other, what can be? They're raccoons. I said, all right, perfect. Let's start off with raccoons. It's a good way to, start something new. And I'm like, why raccoons? He's like, for some reason, in our insurance clauses, a raccoon's considered a bear.
A raccoon's considered a bear.
Incidental damage. So, for some reason, raccoons are considered bears, and they are covered by your insurance.
Really?
Yeah. So that's how we got into that, and that's
a good helpful tip right there for homeowners.
Yeah.
If you got raccoons, just tell them you got a bear.
If you got,
they'll come faster, right?
They'll be like, oh, you got a raccoon, you got a bear in your attic, you got a bear under your house. Yeah. it was very like surprising, even to us that we've been in the industry for at that time we've been in the industry for quite a while now, and we're like, all right, cool, raccoon's a bear, let's use it. So I guess it has the characteristics of a bear, and that's why they call it that. But raccoon's not a vermin, and it's not a rodent.
It's a bear.